This video will examine library rules and policies. It also addresses strategies for dealing with difficult or problem patrons and when to call for help from authorities when rules governing behavior have been broken. By the end of this video, you will be able to delineate the key differences between a rule and a policy and define each, provide examples of common library rules regarding patron behavior, outline strategies for dealing with difficult patrons, and identify scenarios that may require calling for help from authorities. Libraries have rules. Libraries have policies. But aren't those the same things? What are the differences? When it comes to the expectations of patron behavior in the library, knowing the distinction can be important. Policies act as guidelines for what to do or not to do in a situation. These can be flexible and are often not hard and fast. Policies are not usually posted for the public or users. They are typically included in staff manuals or other internal resources. However, a user may be presented with a policy in print under certain circumstances. Here's an example of a policy. A library may have a policy that reference books are not permitted to leave the library. However, a librarian or manager may adjust the policy to help a user with a special circumstance. Rules determine what one must do or not do in a situation. Rules are firm, and there is little or no leeway in enforcing a rule. Rules are usually posted or offered in a format accessible by the public or users. Here's an example of a rule. A library may have a rule posted that no users may conduct activities that damage property or endanger other individuals. Breaking a rule such as this would likely result in a suspension of privileges. Rules of conduct mostly apply to all users. However, libraries may have different rules for children and adults. This list of rules is taken from the Los Angeles Public Library website. Many of these rules are common, and you would expect to see them in public spaces. Examples listed here include the prohibition of bringing weapons into library spaces and using loud, abusive, threatening, or profane language. Notice a municipal code is cited next to the rule regarding language. This code likely defines what constitutes each of these types of language. Defining adjectives such as loud or profane is essential when establishing rules. Academic libraries may refer to a student code of conduct rather than a municipal code or law. Some libraries may choose to focus their public-facing language on what patrons can do rather than what they cannot do. However, some critical rules, such as those that aim to prevent violence or property damage, are essential to every library. Here are some broad strategies for dealing with difficult or problem patrons. These are patrons who may be aggressive or are making a habit out of breaking the rules. Always remember that the safety of the other patrons, your coworkers, and yourself is paramount when diffusing a situation. First, use your head. Do not call the police or security every time somebody behaves abnormally. Assess the threat level and approach with empathy if a patron seems to be unwell. Be patient and remain calm. Many times, your state of calm will be contagious and may help the patron de-stress. Don't let it become personal. If a patron makes it personal, get backup or refer the patron to a supervisor. Do not tolerate abuse or condone the abuse of a coworker by standing idly by. When a patron is upset, use active listening. Make sure they feel understood and get as much information as possible to help them. Give options when possible. Restate the problem without mimicking the patron. State what you understand to be the issue and communicate your sense of their feelings. For example, I understand that the copier keeps jamming, and that's very frustrating. Communicate respect and a sense that the issue at hand is important. Do not downplay a concern or complaint. State the decision or rule clearly. Avoid gray area or wishful solutions. Focus on a solution rather than simply diffusing the anger. Do not give special privileges or break the rules to make one person happy. It's okay to be flexible with policies, but do not allow one person to break rules that you would not allow others to break. You may need to present consequences if the situation escalates. Do not threaten the patron. Remain calm and use third person. For example, speak on behalf of the library or the school. Use the behavior, not your behavior. Consider offering to step in for a coworker who is being mistreated or is uncomfortable. There are creative ways to relieve coworkers in these situations. One way is to use the phone to interrupt the situation. "You have a call, Sarah. Maybe I can help this gentleman." Or say something like, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, folks, but Jerry needs your help with something urgent. I'm happy to work with this gentleman on options for resolving a fine." When is it appropriate to call a supervisor or the police? In the text, Robert Doyle lists 7 situations that should result in calling the police. Most involve danger to persons and property. There are a couple of situations that I might at least partially push back on. The possession of drugs being one such situation. How do you know the person has illegal drugs, and in what way will it immediately harm your patrons? What is deemed to be pornographic? How do I know if a patron is intoxicated, and what is the threat level posed by that patron? What constitutes an indecent act? All of these offenses should be clearly defined in your rules and ideally be backed up by your municipal, county, state, or academic institution laws or rules of conduct. Finally, a word from the instructor. When you report a situation, you own it. It is your responsibility to communicate to a supervisor or authorities exactly what took place and precisely why it was a violation of a rule. Do not make a habit of enforcing rules of what you imagine library behavior should look like. Rather, stick to what is needed to keep the library safe for your users and your resources. Nobody likes an environment that is focused on what its users cannot do rather than on what they can do. Try not to be a babysitter or a hall monitor. Have an understanding of your library's culture and the kind of environment that your users need. Develop a shared understanding amongst your coworkers of how and when you enforce the rules of conduct. Violations that are potentially harmful to others or the collection are always your priority. Thanks for watching. Now you are able to delineate the key differences between a rule and a policy and define each, provide examples of common library rules regarding patron behavior, outline strategies for dealing with difficult patrons, and identify scenarios that may require calling for help from authorities.